You know, some organizations take years to plan out, but others, they're just born in an instant, forged in a crisis. Today, we're looking at one of those, an agency that was created in the wake of an almost unimaginable disaster. Picture this. It's October 8th, 2005, in northwestern Pakistan. Suddenly, the ground starts to shake, violently. And in just a matter of moments, the entire landscape and the lives of millions of people were changed forever. That was the number on the Richter scale, 7.6. Just let that sink in for a second. A massive, catastrophic event that was going to demand a response like nothing before. Okay, so let's dive into this. Out of all that devastation, a new national institution had to be created. And it had to be created like yesterday.
This was the Earthquake, Reconstruction and Rehabilitation Authority, or ERRA for short. Its mission was crystal clear: take charge of the absolutely monumental task of rebuilding. This wasn't just some committee. It was set up to be the top dog, the apex institution responsible for planning, coordinating, and managing the whole shebang.
And when I say the task was monumental, I mean it's a scale that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. We're not talking about rebuilding a few towns here. We are talking about an entire region.
Get this, 28,000 square kilometers. That's the size of the area ERRA was supposed to reconstruct. It's just a huge number, right? So let's try to put that into perspective.
Yeah. Imagine someone telling you that you need to coordinate the rebuilding of two entire European countries at the same time, starting from absolute rubble. That was the reality ERRA was facing on day one. Just wow.
Okay, so here's where the story gets really interesting. Most of the time, when you have a disaster recovery agency, they're temporary, right? They're created, they do the job, and then poof, they're gone. But ERA, they took a totally different path.
Take a look at this. It starts in 2005, a direct response to the quake as you'd expect. But then 6 years later, in 2011, something really unusual happens. ERRA gets institutionalized. It went from being this temporary crisis response team to a permanent part of the government designed to handle post-disaster recovery.
And that, right there, is what made ERRA so unique on the world stage. I mean, look at other examples. New Zealand's Sierra after their big earthquake. Ad hoc. Indonesia's BRR after the devastating tsunami. Also ad hoc. By making ERRA a permanent institution, Pakistan was making a completely different bet on how to handle long-term recovery.
So what does being permanent actually mean in practice? Well, it allowed ERRA's mission to grow, to become something more than just bricks and mortar. Its work started to be about the human side of the disaster. They really understood that you can't just rebuild buildings. You have to rebuild the very social fabric of a community. It was about rebuilding lives, not just pouring concrete.
And this wasn't just some mission statement on a website, you know? You can see it in their actual work. They were creating gender policies to make sure women weren't left behind. They set up social protection programs for the most vulnerable people. They were doing environmental and social impact assessments. This was a truly holistic way of looking at disaster recovery, the whole ecosystem of a community.
But of course, nothing lasts forever in exactly the same form. After more than 15 years, ERRA's journey as its own standalone agency was about to come to a close. Yep, in late 2021, the decision was made. The book was officially closing on this particular chapter of Pakistan's disaster management history.
So what happened? Well, ERRA was merged with the National Disaster Management Authority, or NDMA. Basically, all its knowledge, its people, its hard-won expertise, it all got folded into this bigger national framework for dealing with all kinds of disasters. Now, we have to be realistic here. A story on this scale is never perfect, and the reality on the ground was incredibly complex. Remember that massive area we talked about? The task was just immense, and this headline from 2019 really hits that home. Even with a permanent, dedicated agency, the road to recovery was so long that some crucial things, like schools, were still not rebuilt almost 15 years later. Which leaves us with a really big question to chew on. ERRA's whole journey from an emergency response to a permanent body and then finally getting merged is a fascinating case study. It really makes you wonder, what is the best way to rebuild when the unthinkable happens? Is a permanent authority the answer, or is it all about being flexible? It's something worth thinking about.